Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to finish up this week of favorite live performances with a track that I couldn't not select. It's called Sugar Dragon. I mean, how wouldn't I select that? However, the band's name is Brutus, and that gives me a very different picture from Sugar Dragon. So we're going to see how these two things reconcile. Get into this one. We have Brutus's Sugar Dragon. Now see, the hi-hat was really making me think this was a much faster tempo, but I think if we follow the guitar and bass, we'll feel the actual tempo here. Interesting contrast there. The drums have a lot of movement to them and are really leading the show right here compared to the the bass and guitar, mostly playing atmospheric work. Small tempo change, very small tempo change, maybe 10-20 BPM tops. Very, very cool. Alright. Something weird happened to the time. Yeah, I'm not sure if they were just accenting like beat 7 and not 8 out of the 16-beat phrase, or if we had actually shifted to what felt like maybe a 9/8 time. Yeah, I love those little cracks in the vocal delivery. it's wild how big the atmosphere sounds, or I would say how much emotion's being put into the atmosphere with just the two instruments. Ooh, what? Yeah, real slick. Yeah, that's the second time that she shifted to a triplet feel. It's interesting how it can be so heavy but have this nice brighter higher end. Interesting. Interesting stuff. Um, yeah, there's some cool stuff going on in there, but for the most part, I was taken off guard, um, because they utilize so many desperate elements in here that it's really cool to see them all being brought together. Just to start with, we have a lot of the weight and heaviness of something like doom metal. We have the constant attacking in the guitar line, the tremolo picking from something like post rock, post metal, um, and then the vocals for the first few times very poppy. Um, the melody line has a nice flow to it, a nice little curvature to the way that she places the notes, and the way that she has, her rises and falls in her vocal patterns. And it was this very weird mishmash of these two ideas of sort of this sparse pop ballad idea against this, uh, you know, doom, post doom music, and then the bouncing back and forth on that, and then of course when we hit the just high intensity section there, where everybody was just mashing away at some 16th notes. Uh, it came out of nowhere. And again, it's another style of metal that they've incorporated into this song, and all of it seems to be at ends with each other. Doom is about weight and, well, I mean, I guess kind of all the stuff here, other than the poppy vocals, deal a lot with weight and heaviness. But Doom is really about a lack of speed and a lack of attacks, whereas Post is more about a lot of attacks. Pop is about uh, usually a sort of beauty or a palatability, I guess you could say, to the expression. And then that thrashy section is about speed, which kind of combines the weight and the fast attacks that we saw from the Doom and the Post. But it all comes together in a very cohesive package, and that kind of surprises me. I think if nothing else, you walk away from this video, I hope it's with some appreciation for their ability to interweave so many different ideas that seem to be going for different ideas or different ways to portray similar concepts, and just weaving it together to make it look effortless. I can't imagine that writing this song and making sure that it all came together well was an easy task. Um, so yeah, that just kind of jumping around between those ideas really blows my mind. Just how well it worked. The payoff was well worth it though. We started with, like I mentioned, jumping between sort of the post and the post doom, if you will, and the pop vocals, and that took 4-ish minutes, I think. Yeah, so it was an 8-minute song with like 30 seconds at the end for yeah, so that was probably about 4 minutes worth of jumping back and forth between those two. And I really felt like we were going to be wrapping up the song soon. It didn't really feel like there was much more that they had available to present. And then, of course, I was wrong. And they come in with this thrashy thing, pull it back into a nice triplet feel, and then bring in vocals with the music, which is something that hadn't happened yet, and I think is an extremely cathartic release of all the tension that we had heard previously, especially building up in that thrashy section. So yeah, that payoff was well worth it. I think it has a real nice emotive explosion in it that, like I said, a nice cathartic release. The other thing that stands out to me, and I mentioned it, was the atmosphere and how much emotions packed into the atmosphere with just two instruments. The drumming doesn't really do much, I would say, to add to the melodic or harmonic. We're going to go with harmonic atmosphere here. It really is just the bass and the guitar really filling out that space. And I think it's interesting that they can create such dense atmospheres, not necessarily musically. It is a pretty anemic uh, instrument set, just two voices. The guitar does have some, I mean, both guitars can play multiple strings, which helps widen out the sound a little bit, but we're still looking at just two voices. And a lot of the time, they were sort of playing around each other, so to speak. They weren't really playing with each other in too many moments. So you get a bit of a thinning out there. Instead of when two instruments play together, it widens the note, widens the sound. But basically, if you give each other space and you play around each other, you're playing within the pockets of where the other person isn't playing, which means that at any given time, you're only still listening to one voice. So it's really interesting how, even without the width of playing the same thing at the same time in the same rhythm, they still find a way to fill in this atmosphere and give it a lot of density. Now, I noticed at the end that they took off their guitars and they were, thanking the crowd and all that. The drummer got up, but there was still a tremolo picked guitar playing. So they had a backing track. I don't know how long that had been going on. I don't know if that was utilized throughout the entire song. It could very well be that there are three lines being used here, or maybe four. And so that could change a little bit of my perception here of only two instruments, two lines filling up this atmosphere. There could be three or four or more, all done through backing tracks. And I throw no shade at that. I do not mean to discourage anybody from using backing tracks. I think they're they're an integral part to making music, I think, in the modern day. It's no different than being a composer and utilizing samples or virtual instruments. And I've mentioned before, I tear at myself at this because I like to support musician roles. I think there's more musicians than roles out there, uh, positions, jobs, gigs for these musicians to be in, and I will always support that parts of music be played by musicians. Find somebody to play them. But I also understand that it's just not a feasible thing all of the time. And I kind of just have to deal with both sides of this argument. So again, I'm not throwing shade at the fact they use a backing track. I think it's fine. It's normal. It's what we do these days. Though there's a part of me that wishes they would expand their bands to include somebody to play it, even if it's just a touring person. But I also understand that there's lots of logistics that go into that, space and finances and touring room and all that stuff. So yeah, that's one of those optimal situations versus real life aspects that you just can't. I'm rambling a bit now. Let's get back to the song. So the atmosphere, they have a lot of isolation in their atmosphere and haunting elements. And I don't know how much of this comes from the sparse lineup. Usually, when we look at atmosphere, we've listened to a lot of dread, impending danger. We've listened to happy and bright atmospheres. We've listened to sorrowful and regretful atmospheres, pensive stuff, angry, very rage-induced atmospheres. But I think this is one of the most interesting ones that I've heard yet because it feels isolated. And we've listened to isolating songs before, but that's usually, to me, a lack of atmosphere. It's usually because it's just a vocalist and an accompaniment, or, a very sparse section. Or maybe it's just the vocalist solo. Like there's the music itself is sparse, which creates these ideas of being alone. But this song, the atmosphere itself feels isolating. Sitting in this song feels like being alone in a dark room. And that comes from the addition of voices, not the subtraction. And I really appreciate that because to me, I don't know if it's more difficult, but it's certainly rarer from my experiences to get that. And I love how they can inject that in there. Um, I also love the contrasting ebb and flow of the song. A lot of it just comes from the song structure. We have this bouncing back and forth between vocals only with a single cymbal acting as a metronome, and then these post doom sections and going back and forth. We get this nice contrast there. And then, of course, we get the huge explosive ending. That kind of contrasts everything that came before it. But there's this nice sort of, like I said, ebb and flow, breathe in, breathe out, inhale, exhale idea, um, that keeps the song feeling very human. I don't know any other way to word that. The song feels very human, um, and I need to look into the lyrics because to me the few lines I picked up, I think there's only one set of lyrics in the whole song. Um, from what I was hearing, maybe there's some small variations. Maybe a single line gets changed on each repetition or something like that. But for the most part, they all seem similar. But there seems to be some regret to past actions, and sort of the breathe in, breathe out, ebb and flow back and forth, sitting alone in a dark room. All this is kind of coming together to kind of picture a character who is full of regret and cannot escape the consequences of their actions. So I think that's pretty cool. I don't know how close I am on that, but that's kind of the picture I was getting while I was listening to this. And I think that's going to wrap this one up for me. Um, there's not a lot of really strong musical ideas going on in here. A lot of it is textural and atmospheric, so I can't really speak too much on those. But I mean, on the other side of the coin, they absolutely killed it with the textural and atmospheric elements in the song. So, yeah, if your jam is atmospheric music, I don't see how you can go wrong here, especially with that cathartic ending. I I'm intrigued by this. This is some posty doomy thrashy metal that I could get into because, as I've mentioned before, when we get into harsher musics like this, it's really the bridging songs, the songs that incorporate elements that I already enjoy, and mesh them with some of the elements that I find difficult to listen to, that's going to bring me into these more harsher styles of music. So having those pop-esque vocals, and then the nice quiet sections to contrast some of the heavier, more aggressive ones, those elements keep me coming back. And like, I'm intrigued. I want to listen to more of this and see where else they're going. I would not mind something a little on the heavier side, but also I'd like to see what they can do reining it back in and maybe work a little bit with melody. I don't know how that's going to work with their sparse lineup. Definitely would probably need some backing track for that. But yeah, I'm curious what else this band can do for sure. So those are my thoughts on Brutus's Sugar Dragon. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed it or not. Let me know how close I was to my interpretation, not knowing the lyrics. And when you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box. There's some links in there for Linktree, which is a really nifty resource that puts everything critical reactions related into one place. Discord, Twitter, Patreon, spreadsheets, reactions, requests, all of it's in there. Check it out all at that Linktree link. Right above that, if you could like, subscribe, and ring the bell, they all help out the channel immensely. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, with this weekend's special selections. Also, we have a bonus video for Pride Month coming out in 5 minutes. I'd say 5 minutes after this one ends, if you watched it at release. We're going to be looking at Angel Vivaldi. So, I don't know much about that, but I've been told to arrive aiming to be impressed. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. Alright, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.